This episode is brought to you by Rescue Intellitech, innovating solutions to keep firefighters safe. Their solo rescue decon washer helps reduce cancer risks by cleaning contaminated gear quickly and effectively. Learn more at rescueintellitech.com because clean gear saves lives. Hi, Chris Mc Loone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of our podcast. This is going to be a FEMSA Focus episode. And with me today are Peter Askey. He is the president of FEMSA. This is coming out at the end of December, so the outgoing president of FEMSA, but we got him here for just a little while longer. And also Todd Herring. He is the vice president of product innovation for Fire-Dex. Guys, thank you very much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about NFPA 1950. A lot of the different aspects of that, some things that may be coming down the pike with that. This whole consolidation thing can sometimes seem a little confusing, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But Todd, I was going to start with you. Could you just give me a quick background on NFPA 1950 and how it came about?
Yeah, so 1950 you mentioned is the new version of what was previously three independent separate NFPA standards that as we're seeing in NFPA kind of across the board, this consolidation approach of trying to take standards that have similarities, put them together in one package so the end user can have access to that in one stop, right? Versus, having to purchase or fumble through multiple standards. So this approach, 1950, takes the original NFPA 1951, the technical rescue standard, NFPA 1999 for EMS, and NFPA 1977 wildland and wildland urban interface ensembles, and combines them together in a new package under the 1950 label.
Peter, is this I don't want to say simply because there was nothing simple about it, I'm sure, but is this simply a consolidation of those standards, or were there, because this was like a normal revision cycle as well, were there revisions made to any of the components of what is now NFPA 1950, or was it just consolidating those standards for now, and changes will be made later?
I think it's mostly a consolidation, but there were a few key areas where they did tweak a few things and add a few things into the standard that are helpful. One of the things is they added in an annex about care and use, care, maintenance, and use that I think is helpful. They haven't gone all the way to create sort of like an 1851 that we have for structural gear, where there's rules and regulations about how to do things. They basically recommend that you talk to your manufacturers and talk to, based on how you use product, this is how long it should last and things like that. So they give you some frameworks of how to identify your needs and create, what your requirements should be, and then how to maintain them once you've purchased them. So that's a nice addition. The other things, I think they've tried to put specific things in place where a lot of the manufacturers had dual certified products, either to Tech Rescue and Wildland or EMS and Tech Rescue. And they've sort of created a product category for that and given you a little more direction as to how those two things can go together. So it makes it a little easier to label it. And one of the key things is, how are garments sized? Wildland gear is sized differently than Tech Rescue gear. And there's always some confusion about what sizing makes sense when you're doing a dual certified products. So they've clarified that a little bit.
So then Todd, if I don't know, if I'm when we talk about that dual certification, now if it's, or I shouldn't say certification, compliance, if it's compliant, if I get some Tech Rescue gear or Tech Rescue PPE that is compliant with 1950, does that make it compliant with everything then, or are there still like divisions in there that you would need to to address. I'm not saying it right, but it was real simple when it was like, this is dual certified to NFPA this and NFPA that. Now that there's one standard covering all of it, when I get it, is it compliant with everything, or is there still some nuance? Are there still some nuances there?
Chris, I mean, absolutely great question, and as always, there's nuance. While the 1950 standard brings those three components in house under one standard booklet, there's multiple things happening here. There are still the individual pieces of this. So if a manufacturer wants or certifies a product to Wildland, for instance, or Wildland Urban Interface piece of that, they can have that just as a standalone certification, or an EMS 1999. You can do that as a standalone. Same thing for 1950, or what was previously the Technical Rescue 1951. You can do these individual pieces. One of the most significant changes, and Peter alluded to this earlier, is the fact now that, so in the past, the garment manufacturers, we would have to go through the individual certifications to make a dual compliant set of gear or tri-compliant set of gear, whatever that may be. So you're going through that process just like you would if that was a standalone garment. So full certification to Wildland. So Wildland and Technical Rescue are kind of a very common one out there. So we could go through the Wildland testing, send the same garment through the full 1951 Technical Rescue testing, and two separate certifications, but we put the labels in the product, and now you're compliant with two. So the really unique thing, and I think probably one of the most beneficial pieces of this standard, is now there's what's called the multifunction certification. So you can take that product, and it's now tested within the standard. They've said, okay, here's all the pieces that it has to all the tests it has to pass to get the multifunction, which allows it for use for all three of those components together. So it's really, while it seems complicated talking about it a bit, it actually simplifies it at the end user level. Instead of, gives you that option to say, I need a garment that has a wider range and a wider range of use. And so now this multifunction piece allows the end users to make that decision. If they need something very mission specific, they're going to be running, very, very much focused into the Wildland world, and they want a garment that is really designed specifically for that. You have that as well. But let's face it, many departments out there, you need, and the value of, not wearing your structural PPE. I think this concept has really evolved in the last, 10 or 15 years to say, it's becoming mainstream to say, we need an alternative, a non-structural type of ensemble. Well, this gives, the department a really nice path to go and get that and know you've got that general coverage, that general protection for that breadth of responses. I think the other piece that it does is taking some cost out of us from a manufacturing perspective to have to go through those individual separate certifications. And also some of the changes in the standard. I think the committee has done a really nice job of saying, hey, we're already doing this. We agree with this concept of having dual compliant, non-structural gear, but how do we make the standard aligned to that reality? And so I credit to Chief Jeremy Metz, the chair of that committee, and that entire team who really pushed us through, to I think make an easier path for departments to do this, and also help, give a more price focused spin to it as well. So, I think you get the options within it. So they haven't taken anything away, but they've made the path to the multifunction much easier, I think.
So the onus is still on, or not still, but is on the department to don't just build me a set of gear that is NFPA 1950 compliant. You have to specify what compliance within NFPA 1950 you want the gear to meet. Just a pretty important distinction, because you wouldn't want people thinking, like, well, I've got it. I just said NFPA 1950 compliant. Now I can do all three,
Yeah.
unless you've specified that you want to do all three.
Yeah, look at the label. The label is going to tell you exactly in there if it's multifunction or if it's very individually focused.
Yeah, over time, the nice thing about this standard is these are really three garments that are similar enough. They should go together. NFPA 1970 put a whole bunch of stuff in there that, totally different uses. They're all used by firefighters, but they don't necessarily have a lot of the same function. But this one, they're all garments. We use a lot of the same fabrics across all three. So there's a lot of benefit to being able to sort of test them together and have them in one standard instead of having to, if there's one small thing different about the standard for EMS versus tech rescue, then you have to test the fabrics twice. You have to get them certified to both products. Now they're getting those things in line, and I think over time they'll get better at that even. And so that the certification of fabrics will be a lot easier for our manufacturers who make the fabrics or us if we're putting our own fabrics in for certification.
Now, for the fire and EMS services, Peter, what are some of the impacts of this new standard, if any?
Well, I think as Todd said, I think it gives them a little more comfort about what the dual certified products are and what they do. It's very clear that, if it has a barrier, it does this. If it doesn't have a barrier, it does that. And the labels are much clearer than I think they were before. There were a lot of different levels of tech rescue that were in the old standard, and I think this makes it much clearer as to what protection level you're getting for your dollar. So I think it's really helpful in that regard. It still gives them all the choices they need. If you're just a provider of ambulance provider where you just need 1999, you're only focused on bloodborne pathogen, you can get that product. You don't need the full dual certified product. But many departments, as Todd said, are looking for that second garment, and they want to do it economically, and this is helping them get there.
Peter, I want to stay with you for this next one. FEMSA has a number of user information guides that are available to the fire service to help them with these types of things. How can these user information guides help with PPE selection for the various disciplines?
Well, I think they're really more for care and use afterwards and how to use them. Selection is really an upfront process where you have to really look at how you use the garment. What are your requirements for using it? And FEMSA can help you with that, but that's not, these particular garments are more for, hey, I just bought a 1999 garment. What should I be able to do with it? Okay. And the industry had got together to say, let's sort of make sure that we're giving the same message to our firefighters and our first responders so that they get the same user information from all of our manufacturers that are involved in FEMSA. And it just makes it easier, if you're buying from one manufacturer or the other, the information is the same about how to put it on, how to take it off, when to clean it, when not to clean it. All those kinds of things are in the user information guide. It's going to be a little bit different now. We have individual user information guides for each of these three products. We're going through a review of those documents today, right at this moment, and trying to figure out whether we issue one or we issue three. It's a question that we haven't answered yet. They're still available and they're current, through the last standard. But with this new 1950, we have to decide if we're going to change them or just leave them as independent documents going forward. Okay.
You said they're still available for the last three revisions of the standards. Where can they find them? Are they available at FEMSA.org?
Yeah, if you go on our website, you can request them. They're on we basically have a QR code on all the tags. And if you use that QR code, it'll take you right to the information guide. So if you need that QR code, you can contact FEMSA and we can get it for you.
There are a lot of voices out there in the fire service, Todd. And, we hear from them all the time. Whenever we're talking about apparatus specification, we hear a lot about NFPA and the standards and how they're developed. How can those voices get involved with the NFPA? Obviously 1950 is in right now. But moving forward, basically, it's almost like we look at it at FDIC. Like as soon as the day after FDIC ends, we're planning the next one. I'm sure it's got to be the same with these standards. But I do think that very often the how to get involved with the standard process is not well known to the fire service at large. So for the next round, for the next revision in 1950, how can some of these voices within the fire service, those end users, get involved to help put their stamp on the standard and also inform the standards committee, like a boots on the ground kind of thing, what's working and what's not?
Absolutely, and man, I think this is critical that people understand this. But there are two, well, there are a couple paths here, and you don't have to choose one or the other. You can do both, but anyone can make a public input on an NFPA standard. You can go to the NFPA website to that specific standard. There's a process laid out. And basically, you can provide your opinion. You can say whatever it is on any part of that standard. It could be in the standard overall, a general comment, or it can be very specific to, hey, this requirement, I don't agree with it, or we should look at something else, or hey, I think we need to add a new requirement. And I sat on the NFPA 1970 committee, and I'll tell you, we go through every single one of those user inputs. Every single one goes through as a committee. We review it, we discuss it, and then we have to give a response back of whether yes, that comment's going to be accepted to do more work, or if it's not, why is it not going to be continued? And then and that is available it's available now, even though the standard just published. You can go in, you can start the public input process, and it goes through the cycle. So the initial ones will be reviewed, and the first draft will come out of that, and then the first draft edition can be reviewed by the public, and you have comments from that, and that cycle continues. So the easiest way to do it is right to the NFPA.org website and do it, follow the public input process. The second piece, and I would encourage this as well, is to show up for the NFPA committee meetings. The schedules are posted on the NFPA website of when the technical committees are going to meet. People are welcome to come in. You don't have to be a member of the technical committee to come in and participate. You don't necessarily you can't vote if you're not a member, but you can come in and have a discussion. And I will tell you, the standards are a reflection of who participates and who shows up, and more importantly, who participates. Because you can show up and just sit there, or you can show up and be vocal. And the ones who show up and want to talk through and have their ideas and be part of the solution can absolutely impact the standard. It certainly was that way in the 1970 standard. And I think that is really the power of NFPA in general, is that that ability for everyone to participate. So I encourage that. I think we need it, the standard. We all need it, and I think the 1950 is an evidence of a standard that was driven from a pragmatic perspective of hey, how do we let's do some common sense here, right? Instead of getting down the rabbit holes too far. Let's try to make the standard match the reality that we're living in, and we can do that across the board with the right participation.
Peter, anything from your perspective?
No, I'll echo that. I think Todd said it very well. I think it's an open public process. I've attended meetings before, and I can't vote, but I can listen, and it's sometimes you can read the transcripts, but it's better to be there and hear the interaction. And you're allowed to get up and speak. They give you an opportunity. If you have a question or a comment, you can make it. And I think that's really important to know. All these committees are created and NFPA tries to balance them to make sure that there's a good mix of fire departments, manufacturers, educational institutions. There's a lot of different factions that are represented to make sure that we get all views from all folks. But any public content, any public information is always considered. And I really appreciate that about NFPA and how they do this process.
Well, I want to thank you both for sitting down here with me to talk about this. We took a real upper level view of the standard. We didn't get too into the weeds, but I think it's important to cover these things because as I said, there's this consolidation process is happening with so many of the different standards. I mean, we almost should come up with a guide, to the consolidation process at this point because it's taken on so many things. But before I let you guys go, Todd, any general comments about NFPA 1950 you want to make before I cut you loose?
No, just again, just props to the committee for recognizing an opportunity to try to make it easier at the end of the day for fire departments to get that coverage, and that second ensemble concept. So I'm really, really proud of what they did. I'm not on that committee, but I would really respect what was put forward on that. And I think, it should make an impact at the end user level.
Peter, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say that, this standard came into being at the end of last year in December. I think it was published finally, or January, beginning of January. So it has about 6 more months before it's fully, you have to switch over to these new standards. You can still buy under the old standards for 6 more months, I believe. Is that right, Todd? Is it June?
Yeah, it's June.
Yeah, so there's still time, but a lot of manufacturers are already, trying to get certifications on these new standards, and I think it's going to be an improvement for the firefighters. I really feel like NFPA did a nice job, and this consolidation makes a lot of sense, and I think it'll only get better as it gets more comments and we're further along with it. So I'm very excited to use it.
Oh, perfect. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much again for sitting down with me. We're deploying this right at the end of December there. So Happy New Year to you both. Hopefully that 6 months happens pretty quickly, and you guys can be fully compliant with or be only making gear that's fully compliant with 1950. It's got to be a little tough on the manufacturing end there for a little while, juggling all the standards. But again, thank you very much for sitting down with me today. If anyone has any a topic that you'd like us to hit on in FEMSA Focus, please let me know. I'm at chris.mcloone@clarionevents.com. All of our podcasts are archived at fireapparatus.com/podcast. So if there are previous episodes of this podcast or some of our others like Moving Water or Talking Trucks, please go there and check that out. Otherwise, this has been a great year of podcasts. So my thanks to Peter. You kind of spearheaded this for me for FEMSA Focus this year. So it's been great. It's been great doing this. And so again, thank you both very much. Have a good one, everyone. Have a great New Year and stay safe. Thanks again, guys.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Thanks,
Merry Christmas. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.